70 rocket-propelled grenades hit one British tank outside Basra. And when the shooting stopped, the crew inside was still alive and the tank still ran. That's not a legend the British press polished up over a few pints. It's a documented combat record, and it's the reason Moscow has spent 3.5 years grinding its teeth over 14 tanks. 14. Russia has fired Kornets at them, flown Lancets into them, and sent FPV drones hunting them across 2 countries. And to this day, it has never captured a single Challenger 2. The head of Russia's own defense industry admitted his engineers still haven't gotten their hands on one. England hasn't lifted a World Cup since 1966, but somewhere in a factory in Leeds, they built the one machine in this war that simply refuses to lose. This is what makes the Challenger 2 nearly impossible to kill. Start with the recipe nobody outside Britain has ever read. The Challenger 2 is wrapped in Dorchester, a second-generation evolution of the Chobham composite that Britain invented and then guarded like the crown jewels. The exact composition remains classified to this day. Layered ceramics, metals, and materials the Ministry of Defense has never named, arranged to shred the metal jet of a shaped-charged warhead before it ever reaches the crew. A Kornet missile works by focusing an explosion into a spike of molten copper moving at 10 kilometers per second. Dorchester exists to break that spike apart, layer by layer, until what arrives on the other side is too weak to matter. There is no publicly confirmed case of enemy fire ever penetrating that frontal Dorchester array in 30 years. The British are currently keeping exactly 2 national secrets: the Dorchester formula and how they still manage to feel optimistic before a penalty shootout. The armor is only half the story, because the Challenger 2 was designed around a question Soviet engineers never really asked. What happens to the crew after the tank is hit? A Russian T-72 stores its ammunition in a carousel directly underneath the men operating it. One penetration in the wrong place and the propellant ignites. The hull becomes a chimney and the turret goes airborne. The infamous jack-in-the-box effect that has left Ukrainian fields dotted with Russian hulls sitting 40 feet from their own turrets. The British took one look at that philosophy and did the opposite. Challenger 2 stows its charges low in armored bins, positioned so that even a penetration doesn't automatically reach them. Don't take London's word for it. Take the word of a Ukrainian driver who spent his career inside Soviet steel before climbing into a Challenger. I rode T-64, T-72, and T-82, he told Ukraine's air assault forces. You have only one try. Once you get hit, the chances are small. Instantly, the ammunition detonates and you go flying. In this tank, the ammunition is placed in such a way that it can withstand a few hits. That is a man describing the difference between a fighting vehicle and a coffin with tracks. There's a reason 4 men sit inside instead of 3. Russia automated the loader's job with that carousel to shrink the tank, and put every shell in the crew compartment to do it. Britain kept a human loader, which costs interior space, but means the ammunition can live where the designers want it, not where a machine demands it. A trained British loader also keeps firing when a Soviet autoloader would be jammed and sulking. One Ukrainian crewman put it plainly: in a T-80, you never know if the loading mechanism will even give you your first shot. The designers went further. The turret and gun run on all-electric drives instead of hydraulics, which means there's no pressurized flammable fluid waiting to spray burning oil through the crew compartment when something gets through. And yes, the Challenger 2 carries a built-in boiling vessel so the crew can brew tea under armor without opening a hatch. The Army classifies it as equipment. Every British tanker classifies it as life support. Now the gun, the reason Ukrainian crews gave this tank its nickname. The L-30A1 is a 120mm rifled gun, the only one of its kind left in NATO, and that rifling spins every round for accuracy the way a quarterback spins a football. Ukrainian tankers call the Challenger 2 a sniper rifle among tanks, and they operated at ranges around 4.5 kilometers, distances where a Soviet-era tank is still squinting. In February 2026, a Challenger 2 reportedly struck a Russian armored vehicle from 5,300 meters. That's over 3 miles. For reference, the standing world record for a tank-on-tank kill was set by a British Challenger 1 in 1991 at roughly the same distance. Harry Kane strikes a ball harder than any man in England, and this gun is still the only British striker that finishes from that far out. The rifling buys Britain something else nobody talks about: Hesh ammunition. Instead of punching a hole, a Hesh round splats plastic explosive against the target's surface and detonates, sending a shockwave through the armor that shears steel off the inside wall and turns it into shrapnel. No penetration required. It also flattens bunkers and buildings at ranges where other tanks are firing warning shots. One gun, two entirely different headaches for Russian engineers. The fire control system is where it gets surgical. A Ukrainian loader with the call sign Patron described spotting two Russian tanks at different ranges, one at 1,800 meters, one at 2,300. The crew lasers both, the computer memorizes both firing solutions, and the gunner flips between them with a single button. Two targets pre-solved, waiting their turn. The computer even corrects for wind and humidity before the round leaves the barrel. If this kind of deep dive is your thing, subscribe. This channel runs on exactly one fuel, and it's viewers who'd rather understand a war than scroll past it. The reputation wasn't built in a brochure, it was built in Basra. During the 2003 invasion, around 120 Challenger 2s went into combat, and not one was lost to Iraqi fire. On a single advance on March 27th, 12 Challengers of the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards engaged 14 Iraqi T-55s and destroyed all 14 without taking a loss. The only Challenger 2 destroyed in that entire war fell to friendly fire from another Challenger, a tragedy that killed two British soldiers, and a grim proof that the one weapon reliably capable of destroying a Challenger 2 was another Challenger 2. Then came the sieges and the incident that built the legend. Fighting through a Basra ambush, one Challenger 2 took what British accounts put at roughly 70 RPG hits, 70 separate warheads, any one of which would open a lighter vehicle like a tin of beans, and survive the engagement with its crew intact. Another, reportedly struck by a mix of 14 RPGs and a Milan anti-tank missile, was repaired and back in action in under 6 hours. The tank was not unbeatable, and the British learned that too. In Alamara in 2006, an RPG-29 with a tandem warhead punched through the reactive armor on the lower front hull and into the driver's compartment. The driver lost part of his foot, then reversed the tank a mile and a half to an aid post, because apparently the British definition of disabled involves paperwork. The army answered with heavier protection packages and slat armor, closing the one gap the enemy had found. In January 2023, Britain became the first Western nation to pledge modern main battle tanks to Ukraine, and those 14 Challengers broke the dam. Within weeks, Berlin approved the Leopards it had been sitting on, and Washington signed off on Abrams. Over 250 Western tanks eventually followed the path London opened with 14. One detail separates the British donation from the rest. The Challengers came straight out of British Army stock with their armor intact. The Abrams sent to Ukraine were export builds with the classified armor package stripped out. Ukraine's Challengers kept the real Dorchester. When the British hand you a tank, they hand you the whole tank, then presumably apologize for the inconvenience. All 14 went to a single elite unit, the 82nd Air Assault Brigade, and Russia finally had its chance to prove the legend wrong. What followed instead was the most revealing tank story of the war. Days before the tank's first loss, Ukraine's military published an interview with an 82nd Brigade crewman, a veteran of Soviet tanks, who summarized the design in one sentence: "Everything here is designed for the people." He also noted the effect the tank's reputation had on the other side of the field, and asked London to send more. Reputation is a weapon too, and this one arrived preloaded. The first Challenger 2 ever lost to enemy action fell near Robotyne in September 2023, and the details matter more than the headline. According to a Western defense source cited by the BBC, the tank was first immobilized by a mine. The blast set the rear fuel tank burning. All 4 crew members climbed out and reached safety, and only then, with the tank stationary, empty, and already on fire, did a Russian Lancet drone finish the hull. 30 years of service, and Russia's first kill required the tank to be abandoned before the killing blow landed. Every man walked away. Even Britain's defense secretary confirmed it with a shrug. Material losses happened, the crew survived. The Kursk incursion in 2024 showed the other side of the ledger. One Challenger was destroyed by a Lancet, a drone weighing about 25 pounds, taking down 71 tons of armor, which is the cost exchange nightmare haunting every tank on Earth right now. Not just this one. Footage also showed a K-52 helicopter destroying a Challenger with a Viker missile. 2 more kills were claimed by Russian Telegram channels in late 2024 and early 2025, both from FPV drones striking precise weak points, the driver's station, the gun mantlet. Neither claim has been confirmed by Ukraine's military or by independent trackers like Oryx, and analysts assess that perhaps half a dozen Challengers remain operational, worn down less by Russian brilliance than by mud, spare parts, and arithmetic. Notice what's missing from that entire record: a duel. No Russian tank has beaten a Challenger 2 gun-to-gun. The confirmed kills came from mines, drones, and helicopters picking at an immobilized or exposed vehicle. Hunting tactics, not victories of armor over armor. Ukrainian crews will also tell you the tank's honest weakness, and it isn't Russian weaponry, it's physics. 71 tons riding on 1,200 horsepower sinks into Ukrainian mud like an Englishman into his armchair after Sunday roast, and a bog Challenger with drones overhead is in serious trouble. The crews want a bigger engine. Nobody has asked for better armor. The tank is adapting anyway. Ukrainian Challengers now carry welded slat cages over their turrets to detonate drones before they touch the hull, and the British Army back home is testing purpose-built anti-drone cages of its own, shaped by lessons flowing directly out of the 82nd Brigade's war. The design bureau that armored this tank against the missiles of the 1990s is now armoring it against the flying grenades of the 2020s, and doing it mid-war, which is the closest a defense ministry gets to changing tires during the race. In June 2025, Sergei Chemezov, head of Rostec, the man in charge of Russia's entire defense industry, was asked about Western tanks. He admitted Russia had examined captured Leopards and Abrams and found nothing worth copying. Then he turned to the Challenger 2 and called it a cooking pot, not very suitable for real combat. One small detail undermined the insult. In the same breath, Chemezov admitted Russia has never studied a Challenger 2. His engineers dragged a Leopard 2A6 to the Ural-Vaganzavod plant. They hauled an Abrams there too. The Challenger has been on the battlefield since 2023, and during the Kursk operation, these tanks were operating inside Russia itself, on Chemezov's home turf, within driving distance of his own recovery crews. Moscow still couldn't drag one home. It's hard to reverse engineer a tank you can only see through a drone camera in its final frame of footage. The man calling it a cooking pot presides over an industry that has lost a reported 4,000 tanks and armored vehicles in the same war. That's not analysis. That's a Lada owner reviewing a Rolls-Royce through the showroom window. The story isn't finished because Britain is now rebuilding the beast. In January 2026, the Challenger 3 completed its first crewed live firing, the first time a newly developed British tank fired its gun in over 30 years. It swaps the rifled gun for Rheinmetall's L55A1 smoothbore, gains a fully digitized turret, and mounts the Israeli Trophy active protection system, designed to shoot incoming drones and missiles out of the air before they touch armor. Under an £800 million contract, 148 Challenger 2 hulls are being rebuilt into the new standard, and the lessons of Robotyne and Kursk are being welded directly into the design. The smoothbore answers the ammunition supply problem Ukraine exposed, and Trophy answers the drones. Initial operating capability is targeted for 2027, full fleet by 2030, though reporting in May 2026 flagged pressure on that schedule. This is still a British project, and the queue is sacred. Which leaves one open question. Around 140 Challenger 2s now sit in British hands with no assigned future. Storage, the scrapyard, or a third option that Kyiv brings up at every opportunity. Ukraine has watched 14 of these tanks refuse to die for 3 years. It would take 100 more tomorrow. So take Moscow's verdict with the salt it deserves. Russia calls the Challenger 2 a cooking pot, the same Russia that threw its entire anti-tank arsenal at 14 of them. and 3.5 years later has yet to drag a single one home. Some tanks win wars. This one won an argument. And the argument was about whether 4 men could roll into the most lethal battlefield on the planet inside a British machine and expect to come home. So far, the machine keeps its promises, which, in fairness, is more than anyone in England has said about the national team since 1966. The remaining tanks will wear down eventually because spare parts were always finite. But the record stands, and Moscow knows it. The hardest kill on the modern battlefield speaks with a British accent, stops for tea, and has never once surrendered.